Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast, and today we are here with a character tier list for the casting of Frank Stone. So you know how this works. Me and Liam just going to talk through all the characters, discuss what we think, how good they are, how bad they are, and we're probably going to be ranking it based on how well written they are and how well likable they are. That's what we tend to do, isn't it, mate? So yeah, I'll let you start off, mate. Who do you want to go with?
I'm just going to go in order left to right to start off with, and we're going to go for a young Sam. Now, for me, it may be a bit of a plot device. You know, he's basically the heroic guy who takes down Frank Stone. So he's just like the young cop. He serves the purpose of the story well. But I don't think anyone's walking out of this game saying, oh, 1960, Sam's my favourite character. So, I mean, I'm already thinking, like, maybe B or C, because I just know that we're going to get higher ranked characters in this list, mate.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's obviously like we're looking. I feel like it doesn't really matter either way. The character's pretty consistent throughout, right? Because there's two Sams. There's the 60s Sam, which is the same one in 2024, and there's the one in the 80s. But yeah, I mean, the guy literally takes down Frank Stone. It's interesting how you play him, though, because he can be quite hostile with Tom at the start, but you can reason that as if, I mean, he's literally looking for a missing child. But all round a good guy. Like, I was backing him throughout a lot of my playthrough because having seen the prologue, you can understand why he's a bit apprehensive with the teenagers being on the mill. But equally, does he have the depth of a top character? I'd say no, but generally likable. So I think B, mate. Good
B?
spot.
Yeah, okay, we'll put him in B. Oh, Minecraft. Oh, no, it's gone back to Grand Theft Auto. Never mind. Right, so for me, your pick, lad.
Yeah. Well, I'll just pick with Jaime. Jaime's an interesting one. Obviously, technically he features in two timelines, but we'll go with just the one in the 80s. Interesting one. For me, out of all of the 80s characters, at least the playable ones, he's perhaps the most... I can't think of a better word than bland. But there is some stuff, that juicy stuff to get into there, which I wish could have been, developed a little bit more, but it wasn't. Because you have like the whole love triangle thing with Chris and Robert. In my playthrough, he died early, so that didn't happen. But even when I've played it again, it doesn't really go anywhere, Even like in some other scenes, like when you go to the drugstore, he can like get all sort of kissy with Chris and stuff like that. He's not completely abject. I wouldn't say he's in D, mate. I wouldn't say he's in C. I'd say he's a B character, but I can imagine by the end of this, he'll probably be low B. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to whack him in C. I completely agree. I think he is the blandest 80s character. And the thing is with him is that he's like very jealous of Chris and Robert, of how close they are. But like in my eyes, they were just really passionate about making the film. I didn't get any kind of romance angles, and I just felt that Jaime was really insecure. I would almost argue it's a borderline shitty thing to do to not like tell him like, or his supposed friend about the movie. And because I wasn't jealous. Like I truly believed Chris liked Jaime still, like her current, boyfriend. I felt like when I was throwing out jealous dialogues and stuff, I felt detached from the guy I was playing as. And just out of the main 80s lot, I just think he's the blandest one. And yeah, albeit he did die early in my playthrough, so I haven't really explored much of Jaime, but from our analysis series, it very much sounds like he does just sort of shuffle into the background a little bit, and he just kind of follows in the storm drains. Like, I don't think too much happens, so I wouldn't say he was too much of a miss. So yeah, like I was gonna say C, so I'll be willing to put him in low B below young Sam if you like.
Yeah, and that's another thing as well. He's a walking contradiction. On the one hand, he doesn't want them to do the film. And when they get to a point where they're like, no, we need to stop the film, we need to go get the police, he's then like, wait, no, what are you doing? Like, the guy just doesn't quite seem sure of himself, but he's not dislikable, is he? So I feel like, yeah, B's probably a good spot for him.
Next, I'll shake it up a little bit. And I'm gonna go for. Let's go for one of the Lindas. I'm gonna go for young Linda to start off with. For me, it's tough to say, right? Because Linda is my favorite character, and I have to think about this one because this category has split her in two, right? You've got young 80s Linda and you've got the 2024 Linda. If I'd have to say who do I prefer, probably 2024 Linda, because she's a bit quirkier, she's more sure of herself, probably a bit more badass. You probably just get the more iconic lines from her. But I don't want to take anything away from young Linda. I really like just the Yippee-ki-yay line. For me, she's the one who captured Frank Stone in the camera since I fucked up as Sam when I was, with the camera. So she said, like, smile for the camera, bitch, right, as she captured him. I really like the fact that when I was looking at the trailers before the game, I just sort of saw her as fodder. I was like, oh, she's just going to sift into the background. It looks like very much like Jaime and Chris are going to be, like, the main two, But nah, like, this is almost, you could argue, Linda's game. She's potentially main character, maybe side, But, yeah, young Linda, very good, but not the best. I want to put her in A, mate.
Ooh, you want to put her in A? Interesting.
Yeah.
Funny thing you saying there about, like, feeling like a main character. I don't know what it is, but for some reason for me, she does feel a little bit more background in the 1980s timeline, and that's why I prefer her 2024 counterpart, because I do feel like in the 1980s that she is overshadowed by Chris and Jaime, and I feel like Chris has got a very loud personality, right, because she's the director, she's making the film. Linda's a little bit more happy to go with the flow. She has her ideas, but she won't stamp down on them too much. She's that sort of friend that you can have a quiet word with, is how I see this version of Linda, whereas the 2024 one is a little bit more upfront, But I would probably say high B personally, but do you know what I mean? I'm not going to contest her being put in A, mate.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, like, I agree, the 2024 one's really good, but I love the evolution of Linda. She's so similar, yet she's so different. The one thing I will kind of side with you with to put her on B is her shocking camera skills. Like, they are atrocious. It's good to know she landed on her feet with her directing, but yeah. You know what? I will put her in A, and I know this is kind of like a bit of a shitty reason, but I feel like this is going to be a very B-heavy list. So I feel like she's very low A, so I feel like if someone's in A contention, they probably will pip her. But I do agree, we will be praising 2024 Linda much more later on when we get to her.
Alright, mate, I am going to mix it up and hit Frank Stone next. So do you want to lead with Frank Stone?
Frankie Goes to Cedar Hills. Yeah, so you know what? I said before this game, I don't want just a bland killer who's bloodthirsty, who just goes around killing for the sport of it. I wanted someone with depth. And when Linda goes through the admin office, finds his lair, you get that. You get it from all the Augustine tapes as well. I really like him as a killer, and there's just one Frank Stone here, so we're talking about the entire Frank Stone. I love the way that he starts off as this kind of really troubled, tormented soul who's killing people, kidnapping babies, burning them in fires. And then in the end, we get this kind of ghosty version of him who's all supernatural and is a really chilling killer. I wasn't terrified of him per se, but I was terrified of how powerful he was, and I genuinely felt jeopardy when I was kind of running around the Garrett Manor trying to escape him in that final chapter there. So yeah, very strong villain in terms of the Supermassive Games franchise. I don't quite want to put him in S though, because for some reason I just I look at Wendigos as just a more iconic Supermassive thing. And that might just be my Until Dawn love bias coming out, but I'm thinking high A. How about yourself?
Interesting one. Yeah, there's some things here, isn't there? Because my potential issue with Frank Stone, there are clearly three versions of him. You've got when he was alive in the 60s, right? In the 80s, he's just bleeding between the realms. as like this sort of ghostly apparition figure. In like the 2024, when he comes through the screen, that's when he's in his fully fledged killer mode, right? So something that's not really human. I think even Linda says that's something that's inhuman. If you're looking at the background of the character, Ezra's on some level. I know this is going to sound mad because he can drop a baby in like a bloody furnace, but there is some like sympathetic angles to him, because we've seen in like the clues and things that he was clearly troubled mentally, and the fact that you've then got this character in Augustine that manipulated him to think that he had the sort of potential to serve some higher purpose in life, but obviously she twisted his mind in such a way where killing was that higher purpose. So clearly, yeah, literally, like you said, mate, perfectly, a tormented soul. I just wish we had more of him, you know, and I think I default to that point. I said there's 3 different versions of him, so like you couldn't really flesh him out per se. Like come the end, he is not a Frankenstein figure, he's like a Frankenstein's monster figure. He's there literally to serve as a killer. I really don't know here, mate. I want to say he's a cool killer, but I'm looking at B. If I'm honest, I'm looking at the B category.
All right. Yeah, I guess high B though, because like I'm looking at young Sam and Jaime, and yeah, like I'm not. He beats them for sure, right?
Yeah, I think he beats them. It's just that to put him up into like the higher echelons, I think, I don't know, for me at least, he doesn't quite make it.
No, that's fair, mate. I'm gonna go, like, we spoke about Linda being like a main character, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick the other one. Now we're gonna go for Tom here. Now, Tom is everything you want in a main character. I need to stop doing that joke. I've been doing it every fucking character tier list. I will promise I'm gonna stop doing that. Honestly, mate, I'm not gonna lie. I get there's every character in the list. I don't really know why the guy's here, to be honest. If you remove him from the game, it's probably the same game. He acts as a good sort of like conversation tutorial to kind of get the dialogues down with Sam in the prologue, and then you get a tape out of him. But I mean, he's a lousy security guard, mate. I think, like, I don't hate the guy, I really don't, but yeah, like, I think every character here serves a purpose to the story, apart from Tom. So I think Tom has got to be our bottom of the barrel. He's got to be the bottom character, in my opinion. It's just whether that justifies him being in C or D.
I'd probably put him in C. I don't think any character in this list is probably going to make the D category. Yeah, with Tom, he is literally there to serve a role in the prologue, isn't he? He's the security guard, clearly a lousy one, a drunk. But you do get some comedic moments from him as well, like when the dog runs off, he's like, God dang it, sort of thing. And he's clearly got like a personality that he's not dislikable, but you wouldn't go as far as to say that you'd want to hang out with him either. So like, I feel that naturally pulls him down a little bit. And he's not exactly got depth. I mean, he's not there for depth, is he? He's there to essentially let you, as the main character, get into the steel mill. So, yeah, I don't think he goes as far as D, mate, but I think C would be a perfect spot for Tom.
Right, Tom's in C.
Right, next up, we are going to pick Robert, mate. We're going to pick Robert, and I'll let you lead on Robert.
Robbie G. So, kind of a shame he wasn't playable. I say Jaime is probably the weakest of the 80s. I think that is followed by Robert. He's probably like my second least favourite in the group. And it's no doing on him. I think his purpose is he's the quirky guy to kind of make a bit of a love triangle to cause a bit of friction between Chris and Jaime potentially. But Robert isn't really explored that much. Like, we have the whole... I found the dynamic of him and his dad really interesting, of kind of like talking about what it's like growing up with this like dad with trauma who's this cop. And then he's clearly a good egg. Like, the moment the whole quest gets too far, he's all about, I need to say this, report this to my dad. And then he'll go in after and he wants to protect. So I really like Robert as a character. But in terms of depth, I would have liked a bit more. And like I say it again, he wasn't playable. So I do think there is a limit on how high I can put him. I think in terms of our list, though, I am looking at B, and I am looking between Frank Stone and Young Sam.
Really? So for me, I'm looking at B, and I'm looking at either between Sam and Harmay or even beneath Harmay. The only reason being, the only reason being is that it's like you say that he isn't fleshed out enough. I think that is like a minor quibble you could have with Frank Stone, is that they do so well to set up these characters that are really likeable, but you probably don't get the payoff that they deserve because so much of the game is about jumping between different timelines that naturally characters don't get enough airtime to fully breathe, you know, which I think is the case with Bonnie when we get to her in a minute. But yeah, I think generally a likeable guy. You get a little bit of background on him, don't you? He works in the shop, he like volunteers at the library. He's clearly like passionate into like, you know, making horror movies and such. Also like a decent friend. So he's likeable in that sense. He went back and got his dad for when shit was going down. You know, a lot of people could have just like scurried and ran away. The one thing that's making me put Harmay above him is that Harmay feels a little bit more fleshed out, but that's probably because he got more screen time than Robert. As a person, I prefer Robert to Harmay, so this is why I'm torn between those two spaces. So
yeah, I mean, our compromise would be here, because I'd put him here, you'd put him like there, so we'll put him in between there.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, I will go for... Let's go for Maddie, mate. Now, I'll let you kick off with Maddie.
Maddie. Funny thing is, like, because I think there are very strong female characters in this game, right? And you could perhaps argue that Maddie falls near the bottom. But when you do, like, repeat playthroughs and you pay a bit more attention, there is, like, a lot to like about Maddie, like, in terms of, like, the depth. You have this like really cool nightmare sequence with her when she's clearly getting over like the death of her mum, and she has even moments like in the manor where she's talking to her mum and Linda sort of like overhears it, you know. So that tells you something about her. Generally, again, likable. She's got feistiness to her as well. Like she's not afraid to like shout Augustine down when they're in like that theatre room at the end. She gets some really cool scenes, like in that sarcophagus room. So again, generally, I really like Maddie. Again, mate, I'm looking at the B category. I'd say higher than Harmay, higher than Robert. Is she higher than Sam from the 1980s? Probably so, yeah. Maybe she even tops... Actually, I'd go as far as to say that she probably tops the B category for me. That's where I'd put her.
Yeah, sounds good. I was going to put her in low A, actually, because what I really like about Maddie is that she's quite a flexible character. She's almost like Ashley in Until Dawn, that depending on how you play her, she can really switch up. For me, she died at the earliest opportunity, so in my blind playthrough, I actually didn't get to explore Maddie too much, but I've gone back and I've seen stuff, and she can be a badass, or you could play her as the kind of like naive, unaware, oblivious, bewildered young girl, you know. She's a very flexible character who has a lot of range in your playthrough, depending on how you play her. And I thought she acted as a solid lead alongside Linda, to be honest. I prefer Linda because Linda just had that more badass nature, and we see her in more timelines, so we probably can connect to Linda a bit more. But yeah, I'll happily put her in high B, mate. Yeah, I think that's probably our compromise.
Yeah. Good stuff. Who's up next? I'll tell you what, mate. Let's do Augustine next, because I think we've both got things to say here. But go on, you go first.
Yeah, if you've seen the analysis series, there's no sort of like, you know, I mentioned it, you know, on a few occasions. I really like Augustine as a character. There's a whole separate video thread about whether she needed to play more of a role like the Curator or Dr. Hill. I personally don't think they needed that. I think her little narration scenes in between the odd chapter works very well. I like the whole kind of like the weak puppeteer who worships this entity, pulls the strings for the whole game. She is the mastermind behind the whole operation. And there's just something really chilling about her line delivery and performance. And it's crazy. Like, she's obviously a very bad character who has led all these lambs to a slaughter, but there is this almost air of sadness when everything she does, she gets no reward. She gets killed by her own creation. So I thought it was just a really interesting feature and addition to a Supermassive game, and I don't think we've seen anything quite like it. So in terms of uniqueness, line delivery, performance, everything about, I don't think she's quite S because we don't see her enough. But in terms of the fact that she just had such little screen time and absolutely killed it whenever she came on, I really want to praise her. And I am looking at the A category for Augustine. A for Augustine, nice and simple. How about you?
I completely agree, and I'd put her above Linda, to be honest with you.
Let's go.
Potentially a big call, but such a central character. She's in all of the timelines, as we've said already in the analysis series. The fact that we know off the bat that she's a baddie, yet you'd think, wouldn't you, that would somehow harm her character, but it really doesn't. You know, I think that the voice actor who did such a great job. Again, tapping into that whole like British villainy thing, it just so works. The fact that she's like morphed into different, you know, people or like different personalities, first a doctor, then a shopkeeper, to manipulate the timelines like this Machiavellian figure that's orchestrating all the events. Really cool. I love that sort of, I'm fascinated with like Machiavellian characters, so that's a big tick from me right there. And just generally, you know, you'd even feel a little bit of sympathy for her, weirdly, at the end, when her creation ultimately betrays and kills her after she's put so much effort in. But we do get that nice twist where her old self brings her back. So, yeah, I think one of the strongest characters, villains-wise, that Supermassive have ever done, mate.
Right, lad. Next up, we are going to go for... Mi Guepita Bonnie. Now, mate, I'll let you kick off with Bonnie.
Yeah, I won't prattle on too long, mate, because I think you probably can tell a lot more on Bonnie. Bonnie, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Bonnie is I wish that she had a bit more of a payoff. Like I said earlier on, it feels like they were really bigging up this character. Maybe they were doing that intentionally, because then when you do see her die in the 80s timeline, you've then got the realisation, oh my god, this is a different timeline to 2024, and therefore we've lost a big character, and therefore anything can go down. I get it. But just, I don't know, again, the performance, sort of the sassiness, even like just the aesthetics of her, like it doesn't feel like we've seen a character like this in a Supermassive game before. She's got attitude and spunk. And yeah, like she's in some like pivotal things as well when you think about the choice of whether to give money or not, which is massive when you think about the repercussions of the game. She has some fun moments where she's like making Jaime jump. And generally a really, really likeable character, but she does have that asterisk against her that I wish that, you know, the arc could have been fully realised, you know. So I'm going to withhold my view, mate. I'm going to let you lead, because I'm not sure on this placement.
No, for sure. I mean, yeah, no hidden secret. She's my kind of girl. I love everything about Bonnie. Like, the moment she comes on screen, it's not just they walk into a shop, say, hi, my name is... Like, she's yelling in the other room, yelling, like, Spanish profanities. And she comes in and her presence is immediately felt. I think her presence is really welcome as well, because she's such a contrast to the rest of the group. The rest of the group are these like young, kind of eager filmmakers. She comes in. It's not really what she's there for. She just wants to cause chaos. So like having her on screen in different fashion, like in different music with a different energy, it really made the cast dynamic and kind of varied. And I think I really liked her being a part of like the main five in the 80s. Really cool character, to be honest. It's such a shame, because I wouldn't say I was robbed. I get what you're saying, like killing her off kind of creates that jeopardy. But like, it's just the fact that she does pretty much get a lack of screen time. We probably see her like 4 times in the game. I do like the way that she is kind of directly involved in both timelines, and the kind of like figure getting killed at the start that we're following through the doors is pretty much Bonnie, and it's cool to know that she was there the whole time. But yeah, like the whole thing just caused confusion for me. I was like, right, well, if she died, like, how is Mad here in this timeline kind of thing? But that is probably a conversation more about whether we like the timelines of the game. So yeah, like, if she was playable, and if she was, like, if you could save her and she was in the game longer, and then she could end up, you know, in the manor at the end and around the campfire, however they could have done it, she would have potential to be S or A. But I feel, because I wouldn't say they dropped the ball, I feel like because they kind of like decide to kill her when they did, I feel like she can't get higher than B for Bonnie. And I'm looking at the list, and I think, to me, she would fall below Frank Stone, above young Sam.
Yeah, I 100% agree, mate. It says a lot, though, doesn't it? Like, she's a character, she's obviously an NPC, where, you know, you even have that scene where she's like playing the guitar in the garage, and even at the time I thought, you know, this has got to be a significant character, you know, and she is in her own way. But the fact that it then comes to a, you know, I won't say underwhelming, but like you get that sense of, it feels like there was a missed opportunity. And we've seen this in Supermassive games before, where you look at, you know, the side characters and you think, God, I wish they were playable, and maybe like one of the main ones wasn't. And I think Bonnie could actually be that there, you know. I'd rather have played as her than maybe Jaime.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm so glad you mentioned that guitar scene. My coolest shot in the game. Absolutely incredible. Epic to see Bonnie was like the main focus on that.
Alright then, lad. Let's move on to the Sam of 2024/1960, because of course they are one and the same. For me, I mean, it's sort of similar to like the other Sam. It feels like a very similar character. Obviously, in this context, he's far more wise. He knows about the Black Veil and the Imperati, if that's how you pronounce it. He's like he's in deep in this whole entity and like DBD lore, right? Again, is still a good guy. He's travelled through time to try and stop this go down. Clearly, has got quite obsessed with like the whole Frank Stone narrative. Yeah, but again, depth-wise, I'm not sitting here now. There's not things that are jumping out to me where I know, like I know more about Bonnie's background than I do Sam's background. It feels like Sam's background is tied directly to the prologue and nothing else. So I'm almost looking at where the other Sam is, mate. Again, in the B category.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you said that, because I have seen a few comments in our analysis series that walked out and said, oh, he was my favourite character. And, you know, that you're entitled to your opinion, that's fine. But I look at it and I think kind of how, from my perspective, because I see some of the other characters, I'm like, they were so much cooler and better. I feel like we're talking exclusively 2024 Sam here, right? Now, like, I just kind of, like, felt infuriated by how evasive he was the entire time. I feel like a lot of the deaths can be saved, and a lot of, like, the jeopardy could get minimized if he just got up the elevator and said, look, this is what's going down. We need to do this and that. We need to escape here. This is what's going down. We didn't get any of that. So, like, he actually infuriates me a little bit that I would say he's indirectly responsible for a lot of the deaths and the kind of the bad ending that can occur. So, yeah, like, I feel maybe I come down harsher on him than a lot of other people might. But, so, I think young Sam's more likable than older Sam, and that is what we're basing our list off as well. But we're also basing our list off of who's well written and who's a more interesting character, and I would say he goes above young Sam in that aspect. So yeah, I'm willing to put him with young Sam as well, probably a little bit higher between him and Bonnie.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd say to perhaps counter that thing about everyone, you know, it's his fault and stuff, is that, like, I don't know if you know this, mates, this might be a little info dump for you, but Sam can actually act as like a sacrificial lamb a hell of a lot. Like, when you think of the choice where you can sacrifice yourself or back away, Sam's usually the one doing that. in the mansion during the chase sequence. If you run into, you run into him basically, and he can basically help distract and get a character out alive. So like he is just clearly like a stand-up guy. He's got honest and pure intentions to try and like stop the entity, but I think it's the depth really. I think it's the depth that pulls him down ultimately. So I think slap bang in the middle of B is about right.
Yeah, and I do take your point on board. It is very true about how he is a hero, and I did completely dismiss that. But yeah, just Sam, bro, why are you being so evasive? Next one, I'm gonna go for the Man Bun King. That is Mr. Stan. Now, to be honest, mate, he is a slimy character. He's a wheeler dealer guy. He kind of like, yeah, he's also equally responsible. He bides us time, and he's indirectly linked to like the bunch of deaths as well. That yeah, he's not a good guy. He's in it for the money. He gets people killed, but in terms of just on-screen, yeah, I know it's like, but I'm trying to justify murder.
Yeah.
I'm literally justifying murder here. But guys, you will defend Josh Washington. What is the difference, right? The thing for me with Stan though is that like his on-screen presence and putting him in the game makes the game eye-catching a lot more. The moment like he comes in at the start, we just sort of had like bewildered Linda and Maddie going into this like mansion. And then the moment you see him, his dialogue, like there's energy in the room, people bounce off him. And there's just a funny scene as well where like if you give him the pendant of him trying to distract like Frank Stone, like he's like a Scooby-Doo monster, and then it completely backfires. I feel his energy and the comedy that Stan brings is a really like kind of fresh injection into this game. So like, yeah, in terms of like likableness, yeah, he's damaged a lot, but I think in terms of having him in the game, yeah, like, I really like that. So I want to put him in B myself.
I'm thinking the exact same. The difficulty is just whereabouts in B. It's like, because that's the thing, like, he's one of the most dislikable in a sense in terms of what he does. You're so right in what he brings, like just his presence on camera. He's got this like air of like a salesman, isn't he? That almost false charm. Even when he first meets people, he's almost acting like he's really interested in them. Then you get those moments in the corridor when he's like ready to ditch Linda. He's ultimately thinking about himself. So there's definitely good and bad with Stan, but like overall, I didn't mind him. Like, I wouldn't hang out with him per se, but like just as a character on screen, like I did warm to him a little bit. I did think his death was a little bit on the cheap side. If whether it's you fail the QTE and then he just gets an axe to the head. But depth wise, well, you get the little backstory with him, conning Robert out of the bit of the film. He says he's a fan, but I think that's, what? This is the point I'll make on Stan. Is I'd say that Stan, whether it's intentional or not, he does have this air of mystery about him. No one really knows where he's come from. He's clearly tied into the story because of Robert. And that's part of the joy with Stan. Like, you don't know how until the end when, he reveals that he made a deal with Augustine. You don't really know how this guy fits in. So, and he's a very unique character. We don't feel like we've seen many Stans in Supermassive games before. So, I think B as well. Where though? Maybe. I'm looking between Sam and Robert, mate.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking between Sam and Sam, but yeah, I think that's a fair place. And it is true. I feel like if you get rid of Stan, if Stan's not in this game, how much more boring would the game be with just good characters in the theatre room, I feel like having a great character like that, where I've heard people say, oh yeah, kill Stan off, and then other people say, no, we need to save him. I feel like you need characters like that to vary your playthroughs up. So yeah, just well done Supermassive Games for behaviour, because Stan was such an enjoyable character to have in the game.
There is a comedy to the fact as well, like as the player we're trying to keep everyone alive, then you've just got this one NPC that's completely out for himself.
Yeah,
You know,
true.
it does pull you out of it, and it is quite funny when he tries to leg it and stuff like that. So yeah, no, honestly, I did like Stan. Okay, so my pick, I'll tell you what, we've already done a version of Linda, so we'll leave her till last. Let's do Chris next, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Chris is probably uh, maybe my favorite of the 1980s kids because Bonnie's underused. Linda's a bit sort of like plain Jane at that point. She did like grind my gears a little bit where she's just like dismissing Linda's opinions. She's so gung ho. She's dismissing the guy's feelings a lot. But in terms of her lines, her quirkiness, the way like she tries to do like the cheeky smile to like Sheriff Green, like her presence was really welcome to me as well. There's just something quite cool about Chris, and then it's just the fact as well that this character can be in two timelines in your game depending on how you play it. That there is a lot of variety to Chris. So yeah, I just really enjoyed her screen. The actress who voiced her, hats off, you did an amazing job. I kind of want to stick her in A, mate, because I think in terms of like breaking out from the mold and being different to the rest, she delivered it. She was clearly like the leader who was quirky and fun at the same time. So yeah, like despite the fact she was slightly annoying kind of thing, I think she's a high tier character for this game.
I completely agree. For me, it's whether she goes above or below Augustine, mate, because are we going to punish Augustine for being a baddie, or are we going to say that Augustine was so good that she just pips Sam? Because for me, she's stronger than the 1980s Linda. I don't know if you agree on that front.
Yeah, I'm exactly in your turmoil here. Do we put her above or below Augustine? Because yeah, like one thing I will say though with Chris though is that if you look at other sort of like main characters in Supermassive Games history, I'd say some Until Dawn ones and even some Quarry ones are probably more memorable than her. So I think that's what punishes her from hitting S. So if you're out there thinking, why aren't they talking about S category? That is what stops her from getting into S for me. But you know what? I'm willing to put her above Augustine for the pure factor that she has more on-screen presence, and just the fact that Augustine, I'm praising her because her line delivery's cool, but she's almost like quite one note in what she delivers. But Chris can do a lot of stuff. So yeah, should we put her at the top of the list for now? High A?
I think so. When you boil it down as well, like the casting facts, like the story anyway, it is very much almost like Christine versus Augustine, because even Augustine knows that, and that's why she puts the things like the mirror and the pendant there, because she knows if Chris manages to travel in time and then ultimately get back to the 1980s, she's the one that disrupts the cycle and thereby ends the whole plan to bring Frank Stone and the entity through to the realm. So like, these are like the two female characters. I feel that it's therefore fitting that they are positioned next to one another. But on top of that, she's just got a good personality as well. And I think she's probably, if we were to like think about this game in like a year's time and someone said pick a character out from the 1980s timeline, I feel like I'd be saying Chris first.
Yeah, no, I'm with that, mate. High A for Chris, well deserved. So we're ending on Linda. I mean, for me, mate, my favourite character of the game, I feel like I love the fact she is like, I mean, you can't even say plot armor, but I even think that, you know, gives her a higher score for me, because she can actually die in the past when we learn that there are two different timelines. But it's just the fact she is in both timelines. But I love the writing of her, how it's clearly the same Linda. They have the same face. She's aged and she has a new haircut, you know, and she's got this successful career behind her. But it's just the fact that because she's obviously now a well-traveled person, she's been through the trauma of the past, she's just this like absolute certified badass. For me in my blind playthrough, I got the solo Linda ending at the campfire, and I just love the fact that I took the gun and I was able to shoot Augustine, and then, you know, like Linda got to the campfire at the end. I just think, yeah, really memorable. I thought Bonnie was going to be my favourite character, but when you think you're going to have a favourite character and someone comes in and bulldozes that title, and steals it, I think you just have to go ahead and praise that person for how well written they were. In terms of like the best Supermassive games, you know, like character in history, I don't think she quite gets there, because I have better characters in like Until Dawn and, you know, maybe 1 or 2 of the DPA games. But yeah, like for me, it's just whether she's the highest A or if she's an S, mate. How about you?
I'll start with the negative because, you know, there's not a lot of negatives for Linda. For me, she doesn't make S. The reason being is that when you finish The Devil in Me, and like for me, I was like, wow, Charlie Lonnett's such a good character. The performance, you know, the amount of like jeopardy that he's put in, you get like a nice little bit of backstory there. Linda, she's my favourite character as well, but she never quite got to that status for me. And I feel like it's perhaps rooted in how evasive she is about her past. So you can never really dig deep too much about Linda. Obviously, you can argue that we've seen bits of her past because of the 1980s, but you don't know that for sure because the branching can be different. But, you know, to go on to like the positives, when you do see her in 2024, she seems very well rounded. She seems like she can hold her own, whether that's to Augustine or to Stan or to whoever, even Sam really. She shows like a compassionate side as well to Maddie. Dare I say that she comes across quite like a maternal figure to Maddie at times of need when she's talking about Bonnie, or even like towards the end in the theatre scene. And overall, just a very strong character, even like someone that has like an investigative side to them as well, you know, putting the pieces together about the different versions of Murder Mill and such. And she definitely does stand out as one of the main characters. But like I say, I don't think she quite makes S for me. So I'd probably say A. Oh, this is tough. I'd put her as number 1, mate. Yeah, above Chris. Just above Chris.
I think that's fair, and I think that's what's telling of Frank Stone, is that the characters are very good, they're very well written, but they're not quite breaking into that S category, are they? And it's really interesting. What I want to say about Linda is, you touched it, good point, but like when you first meet her in the car, she seems like this quite cold person. And I just thought, oh, it would have been really cheap and easy just to make her this cold-hearted person who, like, oh, yeah, I'm so traumatized by my 1980s, I'm just going to be a cold witch. But nah, she, like, shows empathy, and I quite like that. There are layers to Linda that are really, like, genuine and cool to see. But yeah, no, I resonate with everything you say, and I think that's a good list. And I know it's very B-heavy, but, like, it's an honest list. We're not just going to scatter people S, A, B, C, D just for the sake of spreading the list out. It just turns out that Frank Stone had a lot of good but not great characters, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And when you think back, you know how, like, in the analysis, I briefly compared, like, the casting of Frank Stone with The Quarry. This is another thing. You know, when you think of The Quarry and you think, I don't like Ryan, you know, obviously there'll be Ryan fans out there. But speaking for me personally, I'm not particularly a big fan on Ryan. I do think that Constance and a couple of the characters were underused, or their arcs didn't pay off. I look at Frank Stone though, and you do get a little bit of that with like the character arcs, like I mentioned. Overall, they're paced out nicely. They've got a good amount of time. They're likable, or they're written well enough. They've got enough depth to push them further up the ranks. But there's no one in that D category, so I think that that's really a big compliment to, you know, the writing team at Supermassive.
Yeah, no, I think they did a good job, and I feel like, yeah, the writing, the story, and I feel like the characters, this is what this video is about, and I feel the characters do very well. So, just not quite S apparently, but I completely, you know, agree with this list. I'm actually pretty happy with this. But guys, in the comments, let us know what you thought of our list. Let us know what you would change, and a lot of you are going to disagree with what we have to say. We always say that we might wake up tomorrow, might feel different. So yeah, let's discuss. Let's talk us out of why we should change our list, and we look very much forward to discussing those with you.
Yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this video, obviously stay tuned. We've got so many casting a Frank Stone discussion videos coming along the pipeline, so you can look forward to those. And yeah, like Liam said, do drop your comments in, because we want to see what you guys think about these characters as well. thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.